Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and this is the HQ set from Dirt Cheap Dungeons. Nobody knows what the HQ means in this set. High quality? Headquarters? No idea, but this is a pack of walls and doors made from 30% pre-consumer recycled materials and natural fibers. And a little shot of the barcode for those of you who need it, is from Dirt Cheap Dungeons, part of their board game Supplements Plus line. This is going to be used today to give us a three-dimensional HeroQuest board. Well, I guess we already have a three-dimensional one because of the doors and miniatures and furniture being 3D, but I've always been curious to know what my dungeon presentations would look like and how my games would play when I have all of the walls necessary to represent the quest. A quick look at the catalog reveals this is not Dirt Cheap Dungeons' first time around the block in this tabletop terrain space. They have plenty of immersive sets manufactured for different purposes. We have the Dungeon Plus sets, the Terrain Plus sets, kits and expansions. We've got Cavern Plus, a roof system, and just so much more. These pictures actually do not do these assets justice, and I can say that because I received a care package from Dirt Cheap Dungeons, for which I am very grateful, and I want to give a huge shout out to Dirt Cheap for their very generous shipment containing a myriad of assets that I will be able to present and show to you right here on the channel. Village of the Lost bundle looks so cool. I actually would love to have this. The set comes with instructions on how to assemble our assets with their top clips and hinge clips, but honestly all of the parts in the box are pretty self-explanatory. You're not going to have any headaches putting this stuff together. We have notes on stairways as well as tips on customization of the assets. They are made of a plastic that is resistant to isopropyl alcohol and acetone, so you can paint these and you can wash the paint right off whatever methods you choose and then paint them again. That is the purpose for which these were designed this way. Walls, beautiful walls of all shapes and sizes, definitely enough to accommodate an entire board full. We have various sizes for the different sized rooms on our HeroQuest board. The material is very flexible. It feels really good in the hands. It does not feel like it's going to break. It has some bend to it, some give. You can throw these across the room, drop them on the floor. You're not going to snap them. They're sturdy. And then hold on just a second. Yep, they do actually have just a little bit of a smell, kind of a manufacturing smell that's unique because of the recycled material, I would venture to guess. It's not a bad thing, and it's not anything you're going to notice. This is not a complaint, just an observation if you're like me and you like to stick things really close to your nose and inhale. I also really appreciate being able to see what I imagine are bits of the recycled material in the material itself, in the texture. I think that was probably a deliberate choice because it kind of enhances the immersion of the actual material that this is supposed to be made of in your game. Moving on, we have a various selection of these wall widths from 1 all the way up to 6. We have doorways. We don't just have single tile wide doorways. We actually have doorways that are set within various sizes of these walls as well, which I will show you. And we have a bag of different doors as well as 2 tile wide double doors, which are not in the game natively that we're going to apply this set to, but it's a really cool addition, really cool option to have for this. Here's all of our clips, all of our hardware per se, unassembled doors. We're going to clip all this stuff together and see what the assembly process is like. Examine some of these awesome junctions that our walls are actually going to go into. Just going to be a really simple and fast push fit, as you can see. Here's a demonstration of what that might look like. Obviously, you can use whatever size walls you wish with any other walls using these clips. I do kind of wish that instead of these smooth, technical-looking clips that we had some kind of texture in the clip. It would add a little bit of immersion, maybe give them a bit of a brick outline. I think that would just be kind of an interesting addition to future editions of this set. And here's our assortment of doors. We've actually got 5 kinds of door with this set. 2 types of double door, iron bars, and then wood, and then we have 2 types of single door. We've got the secret door, and we've got the classic wooden door that you find all throughout just about every HeroQuest quest ever. Now, I've got some information from Brandon over at Dirt Cheap Dungeons that I really wanted to share with you. I actually really love their sustainability initiative mentioning it first because that's kind of important to me personally. They make everything themselves in their own shop. The only thing that they order from somewhere else is the physical cardboard boxes that they use to ship out the components, and they come from another company in the same state of Oregon. Obviously, they use recycled plastics in their process, outsourcing as little as humanly possible and keeping their products as environmentally friendly as possible. These are not 3D printed parts, which would be far more brittle and expensive in time and labor for the printer. I don't exactly know what manufacturing technique they may use, but if it's anything at all like injection molding, I happen to be a big fan of injection molding. I used to be quality control at an injection mold plant, but that has nothing to do with my bias, I promise. I just think injection molded parts are better than their 3D printed counterparts. Now, the question will arise as to whether or not this has enough doors to accommodate the entire HeroQuest set of doors, and I'm happy to report that it definitely does. We've got 8 3-tile wide walls with center doorways, 11 2-tile wide walls with offset doorways, and 5 single-tile wide doorways. We've also got 3 2-tile wide large doorways for your double doors. The creator of this asset pack worked with multiple sources in the HeroQuest community to make sure that their piece count made sense and that it could build everything from the base game as well as several expansions that were out. Relying on community experts, the whole set was designed and built specifically because of all the requests that they actually got for this set. And believe it or not, this is a small box. You don't have to take up half of a closet for this stuff. It just fits back in the box and hardly takes up any shelf space at all. Slightly less space than a full-sized HeroQuest expansion, as a matter of fact. These variations on the door placement and doors in these sizes of walls are important so that you have access to just about any combination you could possibly need in order to achieve a configuration of door placement per room so that you can follow your quest notes to a T. You can even do things that aren't in the quest notes, like end a corridor on a space that has a door right there in the middle of the corridor. You can do unconventional stuff with a set like this. And this is super lovely to see. This is one of the double doors with the wooden doors installed. Hinges and all. They stay closed. When you open them, that door will stay open. If you want both of them to be open, they will stay open, just very sturdy. That's how far you can open them. If you would like for them to stay on the hinge, stay on the frame the whole time you can, or you can just replace it with one of these with no doors installed. Finally, we've got 2 sets of stairs, along with the means to adequately make sure that they stay upright in your dungeon. And yes, the stair steps will accommodate your 1-inch base HeroQuest miniatures. You can actually accommodate several miniatures if they are of an appropriate size. What is that elf doing? So long as your chosen minis don't encroach onto other tiles, which is a pretty important thing, we'll talk about that more later. You can, of course, not use every single step. Use every other step, and you can fit a larger variety of monsters on them. Just maybe not monsters of this size or bosses. But look at that, they could still like attack you from the side. It's at this point we're going to test a few things. 1, board presence, how easy it is to assemble everything. And my index pointer finger here is already in a bit of pain from putting the doors on their hinges. These little black clips here, they're going to take some practice, they're going to take some getting used to, but you can do it. We can do it. These tiny black clips, they've got 2 sides. As you can see, one's more round, one's more square and clippy. And the clippy part goes into the frame of the door. Now, if you take a finger and go to opposite sides of the door frame, like so, then take your squarish clippier parts, you can go at an angle and then push it into the door frame, but that does take a little bit of finger strength. Going in to the front, just like this, that might be a little easier for you. It might be a little harder. For me, I've got longer fingers, so it's easier to go in kind of like this. And after a while, after putting so many of those together, you're going to start to feel it. You're going to start to get the little clip-shaped indent in your fingy pads. Putting the door on its hinges, though, is a pretty simple affair. It'll just snap right in. You can open the door and then push it onto the hinges and then close it. And then, yeah, it's got just enough tension on it that it will hold the door in whatever position you choose. That's really cool. I like that detail a lot. You can keep your doors on the board now, and you can call line of sight anything that the heroes can see when the door is open, up to the amount that it is open. So maybe like everything past this point, there could be like a goblin or an orc here lying wait in ambush. This could actually change the rules for your game if you'd like. And if you'd not like, you can just place the stuff there and say that it's in line of sight anyway. Big fan of this system. Really like that the doors open both ways also. Our double-sided doors are pretty much the same. They will open out all the way, allowing you to see fully into the room. core HeroQuest doesn't have these double doors, but I've always been a huge fan of the idea of double doors because it is one way to address doorway combat. And of course, we have the double doors in Against the Ogre Horde. These you can actually open individually as well. So if you'd like to use the aforementioned line of sight rule where only one of the doors open, but you can't see behind the door after you've opened it, you can do that here as well, and it could work to great effect. You can also put a variation on this rule and say that you can see through these barred doors. Now, what's weird about these don't seem to turn quite as easily. And I don't know if it's going to be every barred door in my set or every barred door out there. The hinges are a little bit more squared. That took a little bit of effort, but you can get them to open up. Just keep them in their hinges while you are turning the door and they'll stay in place and they'll open up. And hopefully I'll be rounding off whatever it is that is causing that. There we go. There we go. No problem at all. They're fine. They just needed to kind of break into their hinges. Now they're just fine. So if you have this problem, just work it a little bit and they'll be just fine. Now, since they're bars though, you could see through them. As soon as you place this door on the board, you can go ahead and place the contents of whatever is in this room behind the bars if you so desire. We've also got our iron doors and they look pretty impressive in their frame as well. You can open both doors opposite direction if you wish as well. Yeah, love this. Love the idea of giving the heroes an action to maybe look through one of these portholes in order to do different actions. Maybe you can allow your wizard to cast a fireball through the hole, or you can have your heroes talk to an NPC or monster on the other side of the hole, or you can just have them look in there to reveal the contents of the room before you decide to open it or not. There's a lot to like here. Here are our clips, and they all offer 90-degree angles or straight angles, because of course it's for the HQ set, high quality set, the headquarters set, whatever that HQ stands for. So weird and random. The connecting clips are way easier to place onto walls than the doors are to be put into their hinges. Now, this isn't the classic HeroQuest board. This is Ian Schofield's Beautiful Dungeon Mats board, the one inspired by Mage of the Mirror. It's actually my favorite out of all of them right now, but it does follow this exact same size standard, the 1-inch grid system. And as you can see, the assets perfectly fall right into the outlines that represent the walls. So they're not taking up any room that you ordinarily would not already have being taken up in the two-dimensional space. I will say you might have issues with HeroQuest in particular, where there is miniature crowding. Some of the miniatures have very sweeping, large, dynamic poses, which is kind of not the best convention to have when you're designing miniatures to begin with. And a bunch of these miniatures in particular can really crowd up the space. They can really make it difficult to have a bunch of miniatures adjacent to one another, up to the point where people start questioning, well, does this attack count? Because he's right there. And this might exacerbate that situation just a little bit, because you're going to have these barriers that take up this vertical space that's going to make sure that no miniature can encroach upon them. You know, they have collision because they're 3D objects in real life. So that might be a bit of an issue. I'm looking at you, Abominations. I'm always looking at you, Abominations. There are a couple of others too, though. Mainly the polar war bears, the gargoyle, the raptors. Most of the other miniatures, despite being larger in size, are still pretty well, for the most part, staying within the confines of their base. So when you set them down, there shouldn't be a whole lot of crowding. Now, this guy's not like the best example, but he is an example. He's better than he could have been. Now, the amount of crowding that could be worsened by these walls, it's actually offset a little bit by the fact that these don't take up as much base space as doors in HeroQuest do. These walls are thinner. They've got little feet that protrude to help them keep their balance on the board, but they take up a significantly less amount of floor space than the official HeroQuest doors. So you won't have to put these on the edge of a room and worry about one of the miniatures on either side kind of stepping up onto the ledge and being tilted. I love HeroQuest's door system, but it's not perfect. And I don't know if this is what I would call perfect either, but for a lot of people, this could be a significant improvement. We're gonna make this a secret door. Look at that, love that. So appearance of parts, great. I've got no complaints about this whatsoever. Quality of parts, great. I've got no complaints, no notes about this whatsoever. They're sturdy. They're gonna last a long, long time. I want to show you painting examples And we might play around with that a little bit later in the video, but the creators have assured me that these aren't affected by alcohol or acetone. So you can put whatever paint you want on these and then clean the paint right off if you're ready to repaint them, and they'll still last through all the repainting. Really the only con that I can think of right now, besides the crowding of corridors, because now you won't be able to encroach miniature arms beyond the confines of these two-dimensional lines. You'll have to contend with them squeezing into corridors together. Now, I'll show examples of that later. Actually, I guess I can do it right now. Yeah, your explorer fittingly is crawling through the corridor, no doubt. Kind of one of the cons that I can see, though, is that if you are building these as the players enter line of sight, you will be taking a little bit more time to create an immersive area for your players. Your turns are going to take substantially longer laying things down, unless you pre-build the rooms ahead of time and you kind of reveal them in sections. So have all of your stuff off of the board like this, and when the player comes around the corner and you're laying down stuff that is in their line of sight now that they've come around the corner, you can place each section, sans furniture, sans monsters, sans tiles. But even then, your pre-built dungeon sections are already going to have the doors on them. The player's already going to kind of have an unrealistic perception of where everything is going to be. Or you're just going to have to leave certain parts out until they get really close, and then you'll have to change out, say, that wall section for an appropriate, hopefully pre-prepared door section. Your other option is just to go ahead and pre-build the entire dungeon on the board before your players even get there. That's going to allow them to see pretty much everything, but your downtime is going to be minimal. You could go ahead and say that they acquired a map of the dungeon or catacombs beforehand. Perhaps a map can be something that they choose to purchase from the merchant, and it's not going to give them all of like the furniture locations and stuff. Or if you wanted to, you can make higher priced maps that do include that sort of stuff in the base game. And this is something you could kind of do already, setting doors down across the board if the players bought a map. Now they would be able to see the corridor layout and which doors are in what sectors, quadrants of the entire board, and indeed what sections of the board are going to be completely unused because you won't have anything placed there unless you choose to place your pre-built territory there. But they won't know exactly how to get to each spot. For example, if all of this is what my quest consists of, and I don't have to build anything else out, my explorer is going to turn this corner thinking that that's how he gets to this door, when in fact, that is precisely where there is a dead-end wall. And that's something that I don't have to place until the explorer turns the corner and sees it. Don't! Looks like they actually have to go around the other way. Whoopsie! Look at that. It's another dead-end wall. So this could be a fun way to kind of mess with your players. But in doing so, we have revealed another potential issue. Potential opportunity. You decide what this means for you and your game and your table of players. These walls here, these three-dimensional ones, I've got implied to be connecting to these two-dimensional walls. And in putting together this quadrant, I realized I've kind of stumbled upon something. I'm sure anybody who buys this set and utilizes it might stumble upon the same thing. We've created a quadrant that doesn't have any sort of three-dimensional walls in this section of the board where there are two-dimensional walls. Would you like to imagine that there are two-dimensional walls there? Does the line of sight still apply? Or would you like to say that the heroes can see over all of these thicker lines by default? Or that they are perhaps fog of war. You're putting up buildings and stuff whenever a hero turns a corner. But if this hero gets to this point and you haven't laid anything down, that pretty much clears up the fog of war. Now the hero can see that there is a monster. And much to their chagrin, when they turn this corner thinking he can't hurt me, I'm just going to go ahead and continue exploring, you reveal to them that indeed there is nothing separating the giant ape beast monster from the explorer. Roll defense. If you utilize the system in this way, at least interior rooms, so it's less confusing, I guess, you could have situations where you are allowing for much larger rooms than the original game intended. And in this way, by ignoring or repurposing, recontextualizing, reruling what the two-dimensional walls are, you can break through established conventions, break through expectations, subverting them. It's kind of a trade-off because the more you have to pre-build this stuff and set it down, the more your players are going to kind of have an idea of where things are. But then this expectation, this sort of intelligent prediction that they're making through process of elimination on where they have to go and what monsters and furniture could be in what rooms, what section of the dungeon, there's a trade-off. Now, when you enter a room, you don't know if another wall is going to be placed. Heck, you could even, as Zargon, place your dungeon section like this in an attempt to quickly build out the sections so that there's minimal downtime. And when the hero enters the room, thinking that there's 3 separate rooms, you reveal to them by quickly removing a section of dungeon that no, this is actually one big room. Your map was way off, buddy. It's the monkey again. In putting together more walls, I've come across another observation. Since there's no like internal stop, you are able to actually push fit different dungeon pieces part of the way in or all of the way in. And if you do it all of the way in on one side, it's going to be part of the way in on the other, and vice versa. It would be kind of nice if there was like an internal stop, just some kind of dividing line, so that you can push fit these in all the way and by feel know that you've got them in a secure spot and that you're going to be squared up and even on both sides perfectly. I'd like to see that in future editions of these clips. Themed clips that kind of look like the terrain that they're keeping held together, and internal stops, both on the angles, well, on all of them, on the T's, the angles, and the crosses, the junctions. It also occurs to me, surprisingly much later, that while you are building this stuff, you can make the rooms as big or as small as you want. You don't have to follow the conventions of the HeroQuest board at all, and you can even build these walls on other mats or boards. You could particularly utilize the Loki system of gaming mats, even the broad ones with all of the open terrain that I don't like because they're more suited to wargaming. You could do what so many HeroQuest homebrewers do when they're making their own quests, and instead of using a 3 or 4 tile long line of rock walls, simply place an actual wall in the room. Granted, you may have to perform some adjustments to your clips here, pulling the external wall out more, but nope, you can do it. You can absolutely do that. Now this room is more like a corridor. Look at this, we've even created our own little trap. We can place the wall at this outer edge, and then when the heroes enter in through this door, they've got so many turns to get through the door on the other side of the room before this wall slowly encroaches upon them and squashes them flat. Every turn it can move 1 tile. I've noticed across the communities that of those who watch this channel, I've got all of these different selling points and pros and cons that I try to list across various assets. Some folks carefully weigh pretty much everything, not just what I say, but other things that they've read or they've watched or heard as well. And for some folks, it's like there's one thing, one aha moment where they're like, well, if I can do that, that's actually all I need. And pow, they're sold, they're interested. This is the staircase from earlier. We can place this literally anywhere. It's going to take up 3 tiles on the ground. And it's important to note we don't actually have like an in-game official asset that represents those stairs. So they're just kind of a little bonus, a nice surprise. I kind of can see where these could be represented by the stair tiles that we get. That's going to change things up a little bit. You're going to have those stair tiles, and you're still going to have to rely on player imagination to imagine going up, ascending or descending in the dungeon, because using these is not really going to enhance their immersion. These can represent the 3 tile stairs that we get with like Keller's Keep. But I mean, at the end of the stairs, you've got this drop, and then the question, can I go back? If you use the other set of stairs in conjunction, you'll have a 6 tile stair set. And that's not an asset that we have in the game, although we do have 2 sets of 3, so you can make this in the standard game of HeroQuest with that expansion. However, they're not meant to be walked up and then back down again. This isn't really a complaint, it's just an observation. You could totally have a door at the top of the stairs, if you could get it to stay. And you could absolutely do stuff like this, the double sets of stairs in one side of the hallway as you come down into the dungeon. That's probably what I would do for like the Rescue of Sir Ragnar Quest 2 from the core game. More walls are needed. There we go. I'm gonna have nightmares about these little guys. Look at them. They're just gonna be plodding on their little wall feet chasing after me down the streets. Wop, pop, 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 pop. And I'm very pleased to present the finished result. This is a dungeon that I painstakingly, meticulously put together using components from this set as well as various HeroQuest official assets, and I'm pleased to report that I had a lot of sections of dungeon wall and doors left over, as well as the connectors. It really looks like they gave you enough to account for any configuration of doors and door placement and wall sizes that would result thereafter. I didn't even use any of the double-sided doors or double tile doors, even though I think that would be a really cool addition to this particular dungeon. Really happy about that. We're going to pull in now. I'll give you a tour of my dungeon, and we'll talk more about different pros and cons of using a system like this. All right, and the first thing I want to point out is this is about my point of view. This is about where my eyeball is, holding the camera right up to my face. Obviously, sitting across the table, you are going to have a lot of spaces where you can't see the tiles. That's just the nature of using a system like this. If you're going to do any sort of three-dimensionality at all, you risk not seeing the pit traps that are behind the tiles or the other things that are behind this table. This could be right here. It's almost completely hidden from my view. So I'll have to do a little bit of repositioning my head and craning around to see what could be behind the wall before I make any sort of movement. Sometimes that's going to mean that there's a monster hidden behind, although if it's a taller monster, you're not really going to have that problem. But other times, it's going to be a treasure chest, and you don't want to miss those. This is the best application I could think of for the stairs. However, like I pointed out before, we are going to run into the issue of miniature encroachment, miniatures that are particularly large, going outside of their own assigned tile due to their sculpt, their design. They are going to have a hard time getting into like the corridors in any sort of immersive way. Now, this guy is going to be shuffling and shambling after you, but it's because he has to squeeze through the tight corridors. And yes, you could probably push these away a little bit, but it's likely that you've got these connected maybe by these single walls in spaces. And so if you move one section of corridor, that's going to influence more than just the section that you're moving. It's going to influence possibly the entire map. Possibly you can't really push these one way or another to allow space on one side without making more trouble for another side. That's, again, kind of the reality of using a system like this. These were crafted so well that I don't entirely see this being something that can be improved on. I think it's just something you'll have to accept if you're going to use tiles, or assets rather, like this for your game. The presentation is stellar. I really love the look of the walls, the doors, the furniture, and the miniatures of HeroQuest combined with them to show you everything that's going to be in this dungeon, pretending, of course, that all the doors have been opened and all the players have a line of sight. All of your exterior shots are really awesome, mind-blowing. A bit of a lack of light on that side, but yeah, over here looks fantastic. I think the presentation is really, really cool. This is a very approximate recreation of the classic center room in the trial, with the foul gargoyle Verag standing ready in front of his fireplace. But I want to show that due to the little feet on the walls that have to be there so that the wall can be balanced and not fall over flat, the fireplace is actually having to rest on one of it due to it being an asset that takes up 3 tiles. And if I move the chair and move the fireplace this way, it's just going to rest on the other foot. So you'll have to rest your 3 tile assets between the feet. And as a regular HeroQuest player, I don't think you're going to have any sort of issue with this. I don't tend to place my assets static, right square into the squares upon which the tiles, or of which the tiles are composed. I like having a more organic look to my scenes, so long as it doesn't interfere with the mechanics of the room and its fight, or its treasure hunt, or its traps, or anything like that. So yeah, this table is going to take up 6 tiles, 3 by 2 right here, but you can easily have it positioned like this. You can have it square in the center. You can have it pushed over to one side like this, however you want it. Now do the same thing with the miniatures too. Sometimes they look like they're facing diagonal, sometimes head on, sometimes all looking at the door, as long as they're within clearly the confines of their square. So using this sort of organic approach to building your dungeon, I don't think it's going to ever be a problem. But I could see some instances where it could be kind of a problem, like if you had to put a fireplace in the 2 tile wide room, then it's just going to have to rest just off the feet, or perhaps the very back of it can rest on the feet. I mean, you'll figure something out, but you could have a little bit of crowding due to stuff like that. I placed room tiles down underneath the castle walls, the dungeon walls here, and in the corridor here, and they look really snappy. They look really, really sharp underneath these 3D assets. The board looks really nice underneath the assets as well. I really, again, love this particular mat that I'm playing on. This version of the HeroQuest board is one of my favorites. But combined with the dungeon walls, I think just everything looks like it was meant to be together. If we are being extremely overly picky, the doors don't look like they are in scale to the miniatures. They look like they are maybe meant for a 28mm experience. It's best not to ask how the abomination got into that room. They don't really see this as too much of an immersion breaker at all. Rather, once you're used to seeing the doors, you won't even think about it. But that's kind of all of the cons that I can think of. Just the encroachment of stuff, the tight corridors, the clips maybe being a little bit unimmersive, the door size maybe being a little bit unimmersive. And again, I don't really have a fix for this or a helpful suggestion other than maybe make the area for the door slightly larger. But I mean, you don't need a larger door. The door is there to perform a mechanical function, and it does so perfectly, and it even allows you to homebrew some new uses. Do you open the door a little bit? Do you open it all the way? Do you perhaps reclose the door when you are done? These are things that you can do now with this system. You don't have to have just two different sculpts of door and have to rely on either open or close. Although I guess if I'm being honest with myself, you can still tilt the door to represent its slightly open or slightly closed state. Still, this looks and feels better than that, whatever that was. The prediction of where things will be, because you've already pretty clearly lined out where the walls are going to be once you set down sections if you pre-build them, and if you do not pre-build anything, then your players are going to have to wait. That might be a bit of a con for some people. But this does change the fundamental perception of the game. It gives you 3D, where once we only had 3D miniatures and furniture and door. Okay, we had a lot of stuff that was 3D already, but we didn't have 3D walls. And this just hits different, if you'll allow me the phrasing. This feels different, and feel of a game is something that I think can't be ignored. It's something you only really perceive once you're sitting around the table playing it. You can't read it from the rule book. It's something you may not even be able to convey. Now, just because I'm saying that this feels different doesn't mean that I'm saying it feels bad. I think that for some people, this is an enhancement, a definite immersion improvement. And for others, this is probably going to be a no-go, because one of the cons that I've listed might be a complete deal breaker for some of the types of HeroQuest gamers that are out there, and it's totally understandable because of the nature of HeroQuest itself. I'm really interested to know how you would use these tiles, and how you would, if they just showed up at your door one day, if money was no object, if you had these on hand, would you pre-build anything? Would you even use them in a different way that I haven't even covered here? Maybe building only key scenes or certain rooms in the dungeon and then leaving the rest to the 2D imagination? Or is this really good for just like aerial shots and presentations of quests? Dramatizations, if you will. You'll have to let me know in the comments below. I am burning with curiosity to know what you guys think of a system like this. I do also want to point out the obvious, the bit of an elephant in the room. These are, for some people, pricey. The cost of this is going to price some of you out. I mean, the HQ set is $139.98 USD, but you get 137 walls, 53 doors, 3 stairs, over 200 top clips and door hinges. Your set ought to come with the spiral staircase too. Mine unfortunately did not. These are far more durable than 3D printed pieces. They don't have the layer lines like the FDM pieces. They're not going to take a million years to print and give off strong odors like resin pieces. And big surprise, you don't have to use these with HeroQuest. You can use them with any tabletop dungeon crawling game that utilizes a 1-inch grid system or no grid system at all. You could just use these with 5e. And for some of you, the cons don't outweigh the pros at all until you get to the price factor. And then at that point, you might think, well, never mind then. But if that's you, I would urge you down in the comments to express what you would do, what you would reckon to be fair. And if any of the cons turned you off, what would be the one change that would sell you, that would pull you over? Now for me, I kind of think the height of the walls was maybe arbitrarily decided by the height of the bookshelves. But I think the walls could be taken down 2.5, maybe 3 bricks worth of height. You take them down by that much, your players will be able to see a lot more by default. Now, the placement of the wall feet is actually ingenious because their placement allows you to connect them in corners or T-junctions or cross without having any of the stuff encroach upon itself and breaking the whole system. So I don't really have anything to say about the feet. I think the feet are fine. If the wall height was lowered, I would not ask for larger doors, or they could go ahead and also make larger doors. Call it the heroic version of this system. I would like for stops to be added into the junction clips. As you can see, my dungeon is not totally square. It's a bit off in some places, which feels a little bit organic, but it felt slightly wrong to me while I was building it, like I wasn't doing something right. And I think if there were internal stops in these things that made sure that all of the things you were inserting in were evenly done so, then this unevenness would, for the most part, completely be eliminated. I've seen systems that use pretty much half the height of the walls, and they use doors that just clip on, so you have a much speedier build. But after putting this together, I have to say, I don't think you would have all that much of a time advantage using a system like that. I like the doors being in the walls rather than clipped over the top, because I really like how the appearance of the door contributes to the overall presentation of the quest. And when the doors open or close within the wall, that's very immersive. That's really, really cool to see. I like that better than clipping a two-dimensional door, closed or open, over the top of a wall. Although that would make more sense for discovery and secret doors and things like that, and not having to take off a wall in order to replace it with a wall that's got the door pre-built. I'm not totally sure what to suggest to resolve that. Maybe making a system wherein the walls are inserted down in two clips rather than the clips going on top. Oh, and I wanted more immersive appearance of these connectors. All right, I've got no business doing this at all because I did not prime these. I do have brush on primer, but I kind of want to paint some red on here and see what happens. Like, pretty amazingly, it's not pulling up at all. It's just drying. That's Citadel Mephiston Red base paint, by the way. Like, it's drying a little thin, but I don't think you need to prime these. I think you can just go ahead and start painting. Obviously, I guess if you prime them, you won't need to do more than one layer like I'm having to do now. But in no time at all, I have created a crime scene. When that dries, that's going to have an even more dynamic look on my presentation of the quest. Like, can you imagine painting filigree and designs and blood splatters and stains and magical blasts and pieces of rock and other things all over the rest of these? What kind of an insane, awesome presentation would you have then? Tiny little bloodied handprints. I don't know why the obsession with blood. I apologize. Yeah, that went on thicker on that one. I was a little more prepared, so I don't think I'm going to have to do a second coat there at all. No primer necessary. Absolutely incredible. Insane. I can hear you, I can hear you cussing me out for not using primer. You know what? You do you. You eat your peanut butter, and I'll eat my pea soup. Anyway, that is the HQ set from Dirt Cheap Dungeons for HeroQuest. You can expect to see a lot more of this stuff in some upcoming videos, although I won't spoil what kinds of videos or why I would be using these. So cool to get a headquarters / high quality set for HeroQuest. Wait a minute. Oh. So, Brave Heroes, be sure to check out Dirt Cheap Dungeons' website right now, where they have up to 50% off kits and expansions. They have a lot of different kits, a lot of different bundles, lots of deals. It's something to definitely keep an eye on, and if you get something from them, make sure to tell them that HeroQuest sent you. Hey, if you like this, be sure to like the video and comment something out of the things that I've asked you to comment down below, because I need that engagement. Do it or the heroes die. They'll probably die anyway. This is a pretty tough dungeon. Bye for now, Brave Heroes, and thank you so much for watching.